In this episode of The Trend Talk, actor Enrique Castillo goes in depth about his role in the cult film Blood In, Blood Out. Roaldo Moran, publisher of LA Times Espanol, talks about the relevancy of print media. And actor JJ Soria comes clean about being part of a police gang. All that and much more on The Trend Talk. And thanks for joining us once again here on The Trend Talk. I am so excited because I brought Belle a little gift.
Oh my goodness, it's not even my birthday. Thank you.
Yeah, do you know what that is? Try to look, figure it out.
What is it?
Do you remember
is it for my nose? No.
Do you remember the Thigh Master,
Yeah.
Suzanne Summers? Well,
awfully small.
This is definitely not a Thigh Master.
Okay.
But it works similar to the Thigh Master for the face.
Oh.
It actually helps exercise all the muscles in your face and also your lip muscles. So, for example, if you want fuller lips, you go like this. And go like that.
Oh, cool.
1, 2, 3.
1,
2, 3, 4. And if you want a stronger, more prominent jawline, then you reverse it and you go up and down and go. Okay.
Oh.
Should we do the whole show like this? If we do the whole show like this, by the end of the show, we're going to have really nice, defined jawlines. But we're also going to have a lot of, like, drool coming
This is too fun.
I know. A female woman, female woman, of course she's woman, she invented this because she knows the kinds of things that we need as women.
Yeah, but these work because our face is made out of all these muscles,
Right.
and we just need to strengthen them. And as we get older, everything starts drooping.
Right.
So if this helps.
And this is a non-surgical way of literally like exercising your muscles.
Wow.
I'm gonna drop off my kids in the carpool with this on.
You're
Say hi to the moms and the principal. Take care of Brayden and Giselle.
Wow. Next time I see you, I'm going to have these beautiful, luscious lips.
I know. So what do you think? Is this trendejo or trendissimo?
Anything that helps my face is a trendissimo.
I agree. And I also love the fact that a woman doctor invented this. So
and she knows.
Kudos
yes,
for her.
thank you. Thank you for doing
so much.
that.
And you know, another thing that I discovered at this consumer show is that they are developing a lot of products that are completely nature-based and organic and free of chemicals, which I love that new trend, right?
Exactly.
One of the things is this company is actually going to your house, getting leaves from your tree and making tea. And
you don't have to dry out the leaves first?
No.
Wow.
And the tea tastes so good. As a matter of fact, I did it myself. I got some leaves from my avocado tree, my orange tree, my lemon tree, chopped it up, put it in hot water, and it was so delicious. And obviously chemical-free, organic, my backyard. So
and we can all, if we have trees, we can all make this tea.
Right.
And it was really good.
It was really good.
Wow. You know, I love that a lot of us are going back to nature, you know?
I know.
Because we need to. We have to stop all of this artificial stuff.
I know the phones, technology, we're like buried in our phones. And we forget that most of us live in areas where there's a lot of, even if in your immediate city, there's no, mountains, usually you can drive maybe an hour or whatever to go to a lake, a mountain. And I really, really love that new trend of getting back into your, your roots of like just being out in the sun and touching the grass.
Didn't the actress Alexa PenaVega do something like that?
Yes, actually I interviewed her. Alexa PenaVega and her husband and now her new cute little son are really into being outdoors.
And for some of you that don't know who Alexa PenaVega is, she was in Spy Kids. She was the little girl in Spy Kids.
Right. And now that they have a kid, a little boy, they realize the importance of going back to nature. So she talked to us all about how she's instilling that into her son and her family. So take a look.
Technology has a lot of great things, but also a lot of negative side effects because it's addicting. It's something where we just are mindlessly scrolling every day. And before you know it, you've wasted these days just being stuck indoors scrolling. So what I would encourage is as parents, be more intentional with your family time or with your time in general. Take your kids outdoors. Help create those memories that last a lifetime. Because for me, those memories of growing up and fishing with my family and spending time with my sisters and my grandparents out there, I get to take that forever. And every time I see my grandpa, we talk about the one big fish that got away. And that story bonded us, and it's super exciting. So I would say be intentional with your family time. Get out there. It's so freeing, and it gives you just this boost of energy.
That was awesome, Alexa. Thank you for sharing. You and your husband are doing some good things. And speaking of hubbies, next segment, we're going to interview Enrique Castillo, who happens to be my hubby. So stay tuned to find out all about his acting career. We will be right back.
He is usually behind the camera here at the Trend Talk, telling us what to do as director and executive producer. But today we turned the spotlight on him and we put him on the hot seat because he is also a well-known actor, known around the world for all of his iconic roles, and he has fans all over the world. So we welcome our producer, our director, Enrique Castillo, to the Trend Talk.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome to this side of the camera.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's start.
The more familiar part.
The more familiar part, exactly. Let's start because you've gone from farm worker to graduate of Berkeley University. You were with Luis Valdez's world-renowned Teatro Campesino, where you trained with the best, and you traveled the country and Europe promoting Chicano film, Chicano studies, Chicano work. What prepared you in those days to do the work that you do now with over 100 projects in film, television, and theater?
What prepared me? Being a Chicano.
Really? Explain that.
No, actually, it was the perseverance. Going back to the farm worker days, there was something my father told me, which was, cuando te agaches, no te levantes porque es más difícil después. Translated means, once you bend over, don't get up because it's going to be twice as hard to get down again. So the perseverance has always been there. And then the training with El Teatro Campesino, which of course in those days, you were literally outdoors performing on flatbed trucks, on concrete stages in the middle of plazas. So the touring overseas, all of that grueling work that you have to do, because in the teatro you had to not just perform, but you also had to grow as an artist, become a musician, start directing, writing.
And that's what I was going to say. You learned to do all of that while you were with the Teatro Campesino.
Right.
So that now when you do your writing and directing, it all started back then.
It is not so strange to extend from just the acting.
Right.
Goes into the writing, goes into the directing, and goes into the performing.
And of course, you've been involved in a lot of really important stories here about the American Latino experience. Like in theater, you were in Zoot Suit. You were also in a lot of Gregory Nava's films, like the one that was nominated for an Oscar, El Norte, or won an Oscar, or nominated for an Oscar.
Nominated.
It should have won the Oscar.
It should have.
And Mi Familia. What other American Latino stories still need to be told?
Wow. You're talking about a lot of history, more than 1,000 years of history. Latinos were on this continent before the Anglo came, right? They're already building a civilization out here in the West and in the Southwest. So all of that history has yet to be told besides Zorro.
Right.
Or something about the Alamo. It wasn't until very recently that Billy Bob Thornton, who I'd worked with actually, did a more closer historical version of the Alamo, because it was based on a more historic book. I think it was called The Blood of Noble Men. And it was told from the perspective of the Mexicanos, because they used a lot of journals to write that book. And so the Mexicans were writing their journals, and they used some of that in order to write the book, and then Billy used it for the film.
Speaking of Billy Bob Thornton, he was in that iconic movie Blood In, Blood Out.
Right.
In which you were
He
in
was
one
Lightning.
Of,
He played Lightning.
and you played Montana, which is one of the most iconic figures in Chicano films, and it was about Chicanos. And that story, why do you think it still resonates with people?
Well,
This was done in 1993, so
Yes.
it's still
It
not just in the
resonates.
U.S., all over the world.
well, the important part of that story is the way it ends. And it's in that helicopter shot where it's about El Pino. And of course, the tree is symbolic of family. And that's what the movie really is all about. Family supporting each other, struggling together, uplifting each other, and not forgetting that we need each other. We may be on different sides of politics, we may be on in different religions, but all the same, we're still struggling to survive in this country, in this world.
Your character in Blood In, Blood Out, Montana, resonates with audiences all over the world, but especially with Chicano audiences. They look upon your character as a father figure. Can you tell us some of the lines that would have led them to feel that way about your character?
Well, beginning with when he tells Miklo to educate himself, that we need to stick together, that we need to remember where we come from. There's things in the film that you don't talk about. For example, in my cell, I have books, and he was a very kind of Renaissance man. He not only read Dostoevsky, but he also read Pablo Neruda, and he read Aztec thought and culture. So he was very well versed, and that's why education was important. He tried to communicate that to Miklo.
That's resonated with people across the continents in Europe. I mean, you have fans from, they call you from where?
Australia, South Africa, Germany, Holland, you name it, Japan.
And I'm so happy that we have a lot more of your talent out there, not only on film and the projects that you've done on television, but also your writing, Dead of Summer. It's a book that a lot of people have bought. You've been in a lot of festivals, and you also turned it into a script. Are we going to see it in the big screen someday?
It was originally a script, then it became the novel.
It was the other way around. So
Yes,
why that
yes.
decision?
Well, I always wanted to write a screenplay based on the area where I grew up, which is Imperial Valley. So I did all the research. I already knew a lot of the locations. And then the story came from like when I was a kid, and we were farm workers, campfires at night, telling each other scary stories, stuff like that.
And
So
you have
that-
another book. You have another project. And that is the one you're writing with someone from Arizona, which is what I think is an exciting project because it's a little different twist than what you usually see. Can you tell us about that?
Well, ironically, these two projects in particular are close. It's about women. They're about women. The novel, of course, is dedicated to all of the women throughout the ages that have suffered violence along the border between Mexico and the United States. So the novel is dedicated to them. They've never gotten justice, and there's a woman who basically administers justice for them. She's a supernatural character.
And in your other one?
And in the screenplay, we can't reveal too much of the story, but there are 3 young Chicanas that are basically superheroes.
That's amazing. We need Chicana superheroes, right?
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to that one.
That's
It's
great.
really awesome.
That's great. And if people want to buy your book, Dead of Summer, where can they find it?
Amazon,
Amazon,
or on my website,
which is
enriquecastillo.com.
awesome.
.net.
No, .net.
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 Yes.
And
All
on Facebook, you can reach me on Facebook.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Enrique.
Thank
you
you,
always
guys.
crack the whip in a good way here on the Trend Talk. We need our men to help
Yes.
us and to collaborate with us in our project. So we really thank you for helping us put the show together, directing us, and for doing
Yes.
all the wonderful things that you do. Thank you so much.
Gracias.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll be right back with a lot more here on the Trend Talk.
Los Angeles Times en español. Las noticias más relevantes y la información confiable ahora en español. Análisis de nuestros galardonados periodistas. Noticias de última hora. Transmisiones en vivo y más. Los Angeles Times en español.
We are living in a time where newspapers are going through an immense evolution. So we sat down with the general manager of the LA Times Media Group so he could talk to us about the ever-changing landscape of media. Take a look.
Roaldo Moran is the publisher and GM of the LA Times en Español and Hoy, Los Angeles, and San Diego Hoy. He was named to this position in 2008 and has been charged with addressing the needs of the ever-growing and ever-changing Latino community in Southern California. Thank you, Roaldo, for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I have seen, as we all have seen, print media change so drastically. And the LA Times has a big Latino community. So how does the LA Times address this community and the changing community?
Well, first of all, the newspaper industry, right? It is it's a challenging one, and media overall is challenging today. But the one thing that we keep core and we keep true to ourselves is the information. That's what the business that we're in, above and all. So paper is just one form, one vehicle. So as Latinos have progressed through acculturation, we have come along with them. That's the reason why you see the Hoy product, which is all in Spanish, and that's local-centric content, just for those Latinos that speak Spanish only, do not care for bilingual or any of that sort of acculturation. And then you have the LA Times en Español. That's when LA Times en Español comes in. That's for the more sophisticated, more bilingual, if you will, and bilingual breaks down in different segments, right? There's some that are barely getting into socializing and speaking a little bit of English, and then you have the ones that are fully capable of managing the language, but they still prefer their content in Spanish.
What do you find is a way to reach them? Because I know nowadays we're talking about the printed word. People are going more online. How do you reach them, and how do you outreach to the community?
It's become more complicated, only because there are different sources where you can now provide information to people. And so you have to adapt. Once again, our core function is to create content, and we create good, credible content. Now, we find vehicles and all the vehicles to distribute that content. And so we adjust. So cell phone, for instance, today is a big vehicle, right, for Latinos. So we have to adapt. We got to create short video. We have to make sure that we give them a good platform that they can enjoy and use on mobile. We have social media, so we have to adapt to that. So we have to use influencers. We got to do whatever it takes to get that information in the hands of the Latino community. And our core purpose is to make sure that they get this information, but more importantly, that they act upon it. So we have to somehow make them get involved, and not only with politics and voting, which is big, I get it.
Oh, yes.
But with other issues,
yes,
homelessness
exactly.
and so on and so forth, right?
And you also outreach in person. You do events.
We do events. We'll support a lot of events. So we did that event, obviously.
With Latina Fest.
Yes, ma'am. And so the importance of that is the supporting portion of it. We get it. You women are on your way. You are the future. And so, and there's nothing we can do to help you, but we can support you. And so that's what we're about. We're going to support those movements and the causes. And that's what we're there to do. And inform along the way.
Yes, and that's wonderful, because when you support events, if they're business related, you're supporting women that are in business, and men as well. But right now, we all know that the women are really like #1 entrepreneurs, Latinas, and
exciting.
So it's very exciting.
Yes.
And what about bringing in the younger crowd? How do you do that? The millennials.
That is we could do a whole show on that, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, by default, LA Times en Español is younger. Latinos were younger to begin with, if you look at the data. But certainly with LA Times en Español, by default, you get the young Latino that is in that transition.
And they're the ones that are on the phone, yes?
They're the ones that are on the phone. But, interestingly enough, and somewhat disappointing, is that, they're not accustomed in consuming long-form content, so they want everything abbreviated, short version, and that bothers me. That bothers me.
It's the times.
It is the times, but we have to somehow figure out how to get ahead of that, because long term, that's not good for our kids. Just, they're not reading is not.
But we're glad that you're there informing
every single generation of
Yes.
Latinos, and you've been around forever. We've been a fan of the LA Times, and now that is also a home for the people that want to read the Spanish and news in Spanish.
That is
So it's wonderful. Thank you for coming. How can people get a subscription? How can people get online?
It's free. Just go to LATimesInEspanol.com and you'll find us.
Okay.
And then from there you can figure out where to get the paper and everything else.
Awesome. Thank you
Yes.
so much
No.
for being here and letting
Thank
us
you.
know that you're out there and that you care for us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up next, he belongs to a police gang. Actor JJ Soria breaks his silence. Don't go away.
Honestly, I can't remember what it's like to feel anything but shame. We could be in Iraq right now. You realize that? I mean, you'd rather be dodging cocktails than bullets, right?
Joseph Julian Soria is known for his impressive roles on some of the most iconic television shows. And today he's coming to talk to us about his new show. He's a regular on The Oath on Crackle. And we're excited to welcome you, Joseph Julian.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now,
Call me
you,
JJ.
I know, I was
JJ.
going to say, I know you go by JJ, so that's easier and it's more familiar. So tell us about how you got into acting.
Well, my story in a nutshell is I took a college course at COC, College of the Canyons. I'm from LA, so I went out there and I had a meeting with my counselor, and at the time she said you need some extra credit. You have the choice between choosing painting, drawing, and theater. And I said, well, painting sounded boring. Drawing, I can't do to save my life. I took the theater class because I said, well, maybe at least it'll be fun. And I sat up front like a good little boy, and I just listened to what acting was all about. And the idea of creating stories or creating characters and telling these stories, having the opportunity to make a living at it, it just went like a light bulb in my head. I go, I can make a living at this? I'm very lucky that I've been able to make a living at it, and you know, but my self-belief, I was like, okay, just apply myself like I've done everything else, and I'll be fine.
But you've done very well. I mean, you've
Like I
been
said,
on
I'm
Sons
lucky.
of
Like
Anarchy. You were a series regular on Army Wives.
Yeah.
But this is like you're one of the. There's only two leads, and you're one of the leads.
Well, it's
in
an
The
ensemble
Oath.
cast. It's an ensemble cast for sure. I do play the second in command of the Ravens.
Mr. Officer Ramos.
Yeah, Detective Pete Ramos, and he's a very complex character. He's having to balance keeping a family at home happy, and then keeping his family of Ravens happy as well. It's a bit of a tough balancing act.
And what's the show about?
Yeah.
The show is about the subculture of cop gangs, and it's actually
Cop gangs,
cop
not
gangs.
regular gangs.
So you have they're gangs that are made up of cops.
Wow.
They're these
Like cliques?
yes, you can call them cliques, you can call them social groups, if you will, but they are gangs, and they're throughout the police force.
And they're bad. Like, are
And-
they bad cops or?
Yeah, they're doing things that are against the law to
Are
get.
you doing things that are against the law?
Yeah.
As Officer Ramos?
We do things that are against the law. But what's interesting about this show is it covers the gray area, right? I mean, especially in a time where we're seeing so many things go on with police,
Brutality.
yeah, abusing their power.
Right.
How about that? It gives you a little bit of a backstory and possibility on where these people come from. I'm not condoning anything, but what I found interesting about this project was that it's a bit of a controversial topic, and I liked how it took a point of view of you're getting to know these people, and to get to know their backstory. My character is a loving.
It's a three-dimensional character, not just this one's a bad guy. And this one's a
Exactly.
good
My
one.
character is a loving father. You know, has a beautiful wife that he adores, and he does everything to provide a lifestyle that is comfortable and that he believes that his family deserves.
Is this your first role where you have a family, that you have a family? Because usually you're at that age where you're going from the hunky roles into the family roles, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really play many hunky roles. I think I played a lot of dirty bad guy roles, and a few military roles. But yeah, it's a fun
Is this your
character to
first
play.
family?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah?
well, I played on Army Wives. I played a husband, and then I had a child out of wedlock. So there's that kind of
this is
family, if you will.
So, what do you say to someone who wants to get into it? Is it all glamour? Tell us about all the glamour as opposed to the
Well,
hard work that goes into it.
I'm not familiar with the glamour. I'm very much just about the work. I love. I mean, listen, the glamour side of the things is smoke and mirrors, and it's very awesome when you get to participate in cool things like this, and be invited places. That's all nice. But I'm very much about the work. I love the grittiness of being on set, collaborating with other artists, and being on set till 15 hours, and being stressed out throughout the day. But it's fun. It's fun. We're so freaking lucky.
I know how to get paid to do that.
That's what I said when I was like, I could get paid to make a living doing this. Oh my gosh! I mean, it's very competitive industry and whatnot. You are your own.
So do you feel
competition, but-
more roles coming your way, better roles? Because there's always that the roles are not there. But do you feel now that there is a change?
Listen, it's a crapshoot. You never know. This could be my last gig.
Right.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be. I think I'll be working for the rest of my life.
So what do you have? What's your dream in 5 years? What do you want to be doing in 5 years?
I live in the moment. I live in the
Okay.
moment. I'm not thinking about 5 years down the line. I'll be lucky if I'm there. Right? You just gotta take each day at a time. Hopefully, to answer
Yeah.
your question. Hopefully, I have a house and have my business, my real estate, not real estate, but my investments are working for me, and
Yeah.
I'm no longer having to make a living acting and just doing jobs that I want to do, like The Oath.
Right.
So, if people want to follow you because they've been inspired by you, where can they find you on social media?
JJ Soria is my, where am I looking? Am I looking here? JJ Soria is my handle. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter. And if you want to find me on Facebook, I'm there too.
Awesome. So great meeting you, JJ.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And now we're going to have another show to watch because that sounds interesting.
For
Oh,
sure.
the show is
For
awesome. And I'm not saying it because I'm in it. It really is an awesome show.
Well, we'll be watching.
All right.
Thank you so much. We'll be back.
That's it for now. Remember to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere, right?
Yes, because remember, if it's trending,
We're talking.